Well, I guess we found out in the last several days it was a Merry Christmas at the Steen/Owens household, or it will be. Now we talked about Steen. Kevin Owens has re-signed, not resigned, but re-signed with the WWE. See how I pronounce that there? WWE. See, Vince, some things you taught me, I just can't break the habit. And we were shocked because we thought he's going to go and play with all of his friends. And we remarked about this on the Drive-Thru this past week and said, well, they must have made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. And come to find out now, as more reports are coming to light, we haven't seen the paperwork, but it's alleged, and I haven't seen Mr. Owens shouting from the rooftops that it's bullshit, that he's making between $2 and $3 million a year for multiple years. We don't know how many. Is this what you saw, Brian? Is this the report that you saw?
I've seen reports saying anything from $2 to $3 million per year. But of course, no cut clause in the contract.
Well, but that is something else that was said also. There's not a no cut clause. That gave me cause to pause about the clause, but $2 to $3 million a year on the surface of it, I'm sure that Kevin is happy, but you've got to think the way that this has progressed over the last couple of years. Let's back, and then we'll talk about the no cut here in a second. In 2019, before AEW materialized on television, when they knew it was coming, but they hadn't seen it yet, that's when the WWE were making big offers to even mid-card talent to stay. And some did and some didn't. Remember, FTR said, fuck it, we're going to get out of here because you've buried us long enough. And they went to a different graveyard.
And if they hadn't done that, they would have been released with everyone else who had WWE had tried to sign during that same period of time.
Yes, because Gallows and Anderson, on the other hand, said, well, fuck it, we'll take this large amount of money. And then they got let go, 3 months later? Because once that the former upper echelon folks, this was before the change to the cons, when the previous upper echelon folks and everybody saw AEW materialize, they figured, and rightfully so at that point in time, holy shit, we ain't got anything to worry about. We were trying to fucking throw money at people for nothing. And that's when they started letting everybody go that they'd overpaid before. And then there was a change at the top. And since then, they've gone on a firing spree that is, I guess, is pretty well unprecedented in modern wrestling history, because no promotion has ever had that many people under contract to let them go and still be able to field a team, right? So now that they have made everybody nervous and insecure and pissed off, all the talent that is, well, maybe some of the fans too, under the new administration, now they've lost they've lost NXT, basically. They might as well just change it. Instead of NXT 2.0, they might as well say the promotion formerly known as NXT. They've run off everybody's favorites from there. They lost Danielson. They couldn't entice Punk to come back in the fold. And now they need to worry about AEW, because they've not just let talent go from the WWE roster that the WWE they didn't want to use and they didn't figure it was, any good to them. They have let a number go that are very valuable to AEW. And now we're in a promotional war again, apparently, because now they've let so many difference makers go or potentially be free to go that now we're back in a promotional war. Because I'm not even trying to knock him here. I've always said Kevin Steen could work and could talk, and how he's been booked is not necessarily his fault, whether good or bad. I'm sure he's complained about it a bunch, unless he's changed completely. But that Kevin Steen is getting $2 to $3 million a year indicates two things. Number one, there is actually three things. Number one, there's an incredible shortage of talent in the industry to begin with. Number two, the WWE is tired of being embarrassed by having difference makers just handed over on a silver platter to the other side. And number three, we're back in a promotional war. Because if Kevin Steen is worth between $2 and $3 million a year, then what are they giving Roman Reigns? 15 to 20? Because they're doing what they started doing 2 years ago, which is upsetting their salary structure. But now they're really upsetting their salary structure because they have to offer even more money than they were offering before to get people to stay. And for once in this, if Tony Khan was in this bidding war, for once he did the smart thing. When it got to anything over $2 million a year for Kevin Steen, he said, keep him. Because that may be a tactic they're trying also. Well, let's see if we can bid some of because let's face it, the WWE has tons of financial resources. Maybe they're trying to bid these guys up thinking that he would just be the modern day Eric Bischoff and spend money like a drunken sailor to sign up all the stars and then have an unsustainable payroll, no matter how good he does. And they ain't doing the revenue that WCW was doing in 1999 yet over at AEW, and they still went broke. But maybe they've just realized that the battle of perception is being lost quickly. The more people that go from WWE to AEW television, especially when they were in high-profile positions with their previous employer. And this is all a one-sided thing, too. Is there anybody in AEW right now that the WWE could sign away from them and capitalize on and not fuck up and be a top guy for the WWE? I don't know about that.
And not fuck up? I don't think there's anyone in the world of wrestling now or ever that modern WWE couldn't fuck up.
Well, but okay, let's just real quickly, and then we'll talk about Kevin's cohort in crime, Sami Zayn. But that's a question I'll ask you. Who could leave? There's still several more difference makers, obviously, that could go to AEW. Who could leave AEW and make any difference in the WWE's business right now?
I'll name people even though I don't think they would go there. Obviously, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, make a difference in their business right now. I don't know if an MJF would now.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
See, because AEW has some guys that WWE could sign and build if they did it right for the future, MJF, whoever. But right now, the only difference makers are the ones you mentioned, the guys that would just be going right back home. And they're actually more valuable in AEW than they are in the WWE just because they'd be going back to the same old environment. Can you think of anybody else right now that would make a difference?
Again, like even people at the top of the card, and I know you don't like them, just hear me out. I'm not saying the Bucks, but Omega. He's been their world champion. He's been presented as a top guy there. I don't have faith, even if you are an Omega fan, that if he signed with WWE, they wouldn't completely change whatever it is you like about him. Because they do that to everybody. Punk and Danielson, we know who they are, and they're main event guys. Who else? None of the other guys they released who were there would be game changers. I don't think the Bucks would be game changers. And it's going to sound crazy considering everything I've ever said, if they brought in Cody and Brandy and really went full bore and fed into their ego and kind of went with it, maybe there's something there.
That would fit.
Because those two are hungry.
Those two in that environment as the greedy celebrity couple would fit.
Right. So I think Cody's not outrageous there. I don't think Jericho's a difference maker anywhere at this point. A few years ago, it may have been, I don't know if he would have been a difference maker in WWE, but his stature, I think, in wrestling was a little different a few years ago than it is right now. So I can't say Jericho. Moxley is interesting because he was never Moxley in WWE, and I don't think he could ever go back to being Dean Ambrose. But he's one of the outside picks, I would say, because he's someone who has shown that he can move merch. He pulls numbers for AEW. He was in that top mix, but there aren't too many. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, and someone's going to yell at me, what about Orange Cassidy?
Hey, if they took old Twinkle Toes, Mr. Olivier, and didn't change anything about him, let him be exactly who he apparently is, can you see the match against Roman Reigns? Can you see Roman Reigns going for a lot of that foolishness? Can you see Twinkle Toes trying to give Roman Reigns the one-winged fairy?
I personally can't see Omega and Roman Reigns.
So I'm telling you, this guy, even if they didn't change anything about him, the people in the WWE, not the office, but the talent, maybe the underneath guys would love to work with him, but the top guys would not go for almost any of his foolishness. And he would fall flat on his ass, because the reason why that he looks somewhat credible in AEW is because everybody caters to the shit that he does, which was revealed in the match with Danielson and Page, because Page has never had a match like that good. And it's because of his opponent. I'm not saying Page isn't good. I'm saying he's had different opponents. You can't can't have a goddamn 4-star match with Ox Baker or whatever, right? But it would be interesting to see Mr. Olivier try to have those extravaganzas he has with any top talent who's not going to go along with his foolishness.